Hello? It's falling off. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Oops. We're ready to go. Well, hello everyone. It's nice to see you all. Well, I'm Dinesh Babuta. I'm one of the members of the Code of Conduct Task Force, and I'll be chairing this session. I said I'm one of the team, and it is chaired by our first speaker, Leo Vigoda. Brian Nisbet and Salam Yamut, who are not here, are also other members of the task force. And we are supported by a couple of people from the RIPE NCC, our second speaker, Anthony Gollan, and Athena Frakule, our third speaker. So it's actually nice to see people after such a long time. But at the same time, I'd like to remind you that there are people online as well. It's a hybrid meeting. So we will be taking questions for those online at the using the Meet Echo thing. So please ask your questions on there. We'll queue up. And I will be chairing and managing hopefully managing the queue well. And for those in the room, please use your Meet Echo Lite link. If you want to come up to the microphone, before you come up to the microphone, we'd like to see the queue on the screen. So you click on the hand thing, and then you walk up to the microphone, and I will allow you to ask a question. In case you weren't aware, the RIPE meeting does have a code of conduct. And in essence, it's basically be nice and respectful to each other. That's all it is, really. And at this stage, I'll hand you over to our first speaker, Leo Vigoda.
Thank you, Dinesh. So before I move on to the slide that I will present, I would like to ask people who are here, did you know that we have published a draft code of conduct process? I appreciate that those people who are online, it's going to be difficult for us to see their hands, but if you're in the room and you knew that we had published this draft code of conduct process, could you raise your hand? It's not absolutely everyone, but it's most people, which is good. And of those people who knew that we had published it, has anyone read it? Okay, so like maybe half the people who are here in the room. The reason I'm asking this is we haven't yet actually had any comments on the list. And I'm going to summarize what is in this process in the slide that I'm talking to. How do I move it along? Oh, right, okay. This one? Oh, okay. I didn't know that was a button. Just should be. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to go through this. We haven't yet had any feedback on the list. We don't want to assume that silence means that everyone thinks that the draft that we published, which we know needs a little bit of wordsmithing anyway, is perfect.
I clicked it away now.
To make a decision, but if they don't have any input from people saying this is broadly good or this bit needs to change, it's going to be very difficult for them to make a decision. So we would really appreciate if people who have read it could either send a +1, or if they disagree with something or would like wording improved, call that out, because that is genuinely helpful. But let me just quickly walk you through the process before I hand over to Anthony, and summarize what we have in this draft. So the first thing is the process starts with a report being submitted. And this means that the code of conduct team that we're going to talk about recruiting in this BoF will be reacting to reports. They will not be proactively seeking out things to investigate. At that point, when the report has been submitted, they will then form an assessment group. That will be 2 members of the community and 1 supporting person from the RIPE NCC who will be suitably qualified. And now for the tricky bit. The report is assessed, and some of this Anthony is going to talk about because there's going to be proper training, and Anthony has found people who are going to be good at this. Then a decision is made. Was there actually a breach of the code of conduct, or was there not a breach of the code of conduct? If there are actions that need to be taken as a consequence of that, some kind of consequence like an apology, that will be decided upon, and the decision will be recorded in an appropriate database that will allow the RIPE NCC to implement these decisions. And if you go and look at the draft, you will see that there are some proposed times for keeping that data in the database. For a minor breach, 18 months, and for a major breach, 36 months. And the idea there is to make sure that we're capturing a certain number of RIPE meetings. You could give guidance on whether you support those timings or not, whether you would like to see different timings. All of this, your feedback is really welcome. That is the end of my summary. You can find a better summary on our RIPE Labs article, and that also links to the document. So if you just go to labs.ripe.net, scroll down a little bit, you will find the blog post, which came out like middle of April, I think, and you can go and read that. And please provide some feedback so that we know what needs to change, or whether you are broadly supportive, all those kinds of things. I'm now going to hand over to Anthony, who's going to talk about the training that will be offered to potential members of the Code of Conduct team.
Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. So I've been contacting a few different training providers to find someone that can train our future Code of Conduct team. I think we've found someone pretty good. We haven't actually really sort of finalized everything yet, so I won't get too specific, but they seem to have a lot of experience dealing with technical communities, and it was pretty sort of quite reassuring to hear in the discussions with them that they really sort of got a lot of the issues and dynamics of a community like ours. So in terms of the topics the training would cover, you would start with a bit of sort of theory and sort of common pitfalls, how they should really function. And this is kind of important because the Code of Conduct team will be responsible for eventually proposing improvements to the Code of Conduct. And then there's obviously the process of receiving reports and sort of responding with sensitivity to people that might be in a bit of distress, but also sort of making sure that everything's handled properly. And then of course there's the conducting actual investigations in line with the actual Code of Conduct itself, which is gathering and reviewing evidence, statements, comments from people. And then there's following up, and then a bit of dispute resolution, mediation type skills. And this will basically be about 2 days of training, 3 hours a day. And the sessions will be a bit of theory, lecture type stuff, but a lot of sort of practical role play and exercises. And the person really described it kind of using Dungeons and Dragons as the example. So she's kind of the person running the scenario, and the situation will kind of evolve over time, which I thought sounded quite cool. Yeah, so that's basically it. Any questions? Nope.
Hello, everyone. My name is Athena, and my part is to discuss a little bit about the selection process of possible members of the Code of Conduct team, which is the team that will evaluate Code of Conduct violation reports. So what we tried actually to see whether we have something similar, like a body that deals with conflicts already, and we do. We have the arbiters, the RIPE NCC arbiters. No? Yes, the RIPE NCC arbiters. And this is the body that deals with conflicts between the RIPE NCC management and the RIPE NCC about RIPE NCC management decisions on the one hand, and members, or between members, conflicts between members. So if we see, if we have a look at this body, the selection for arbiters has certain criteria and a certain process. So if we go through the criteria, what is written down in the arbitration procedure is that an arbiter must have good knowledge of the internet, the IT sector, and RIPE NCC procedures and RIPE policy, which makes sense because we're talking about implementations of this procedures and policies. Another interesting criteria has to do with the whole body, the whole panel of the arbiters. The whole panel should reflect as broad a spectrum of internet community members as possible. And that is indeed to reflect the different origin of members and so on. Then, of course, the arbiters must commit to performing the tasks and being responsive to the RIPE NCC and other arbiters. So if someone wants to do the job, they should also follow up with that. It is a commitment, it takes some time. And of course, they must be impartial, which means they shouldn't have a conflict of interest for a specific case. And if they have, they must declare it and step away, pretty much. These are the criteria for the arbiters. The process now. If someone is interested in being an arbiter, they fill in an application and send it to the executive board. So the executive board is the one that sees the application and decides on the eligibility. We're talking about the RIPE NCC executive board here, to be clear. And if the board decides that yes, this candidate is eligible, they nominate them. The final word on the approval of a specific person as an arbiter is vested by the general meeting. So the general meeting is the one that decides in the end if someone can be an arbiter or not. Of course, if someone becomes an arbiter, if they fail to perform, they can be dismissed, and there's a process for that as well. The executive board proposes the dismissal, and the GM approves the dismissal again. So based on this example, we try to understand, and this is where we need your input actually here. We try to understand what would be the criteria that the Code of Conduct team should have, like as a whole or as individuals, and what would be the relevant process for the approval of someone to become a member of this team. So some specific questions about that. We saw in the arbiters there are some criteria that are individual and some that are like for the whole team. So as a team, do we want to have a gender nationality balance of this body? Do we want to reflect different cultures individually? Do we want them to have specific knowledge or experience about some aspects of, I don't know, the code of conduct? Maybe they have been members of another code of conduct team, or personality types. Are we looking for I don't know, a specific personality type to be a member? Are there any negative criteria? Something that we don't want a member of this team to have? And the selection process. For the arbiters, we have the executive board and the GM, which makes sense because it's a ripency matter in terms of arbitration. And so there are specific bodies that have a role in this process. For the code of conduct team, it's the whole community. It's not just the RIPE NCC. Are there any other bodies, perhaps within the RIPE community, that would have a final approval or a final saying for this selection? Are there any other checks which should be done beforehand for nominees? I don't know, screening checks, background checks, any other due diligence checks that we find appropriate? So I think this is how we want to open the discussion. And if anyone has any preferences or ideas or opinions.
Hello. Oh, does this work? Yeah. Cynthia Rifström. I assume you're open for questions now. Should I interpret this like that? Yeah. Okay. So, I have a lot of opinions on this, so I'll take some of them. For team as a whole, gender nationality balance, yes, for sure. It should be thank you. We should try to do it as good as possible, of course, as the RIPE community is quite skewed in terms of gender and also nationality to some extent. It might not be possible in all extent, but we should at least try to not just have one gender, because that would not be great. Also for nationality, like, while it's good to have people from different geographical and cultural parts, I think it doesn't really matter that much for some. Like having, for example, for me, having 2 Swedes or 1 Norwegian and 1 Swede doesn't make a difference, really. It's pretty much the same. So I feel like that's the main thing I have there. So I think culture is probably maybe more important than nationality. Maybe also somewhat geographical, so we also have people from slightly different parts. But yeah, and also maybe also some other minorities. So maybe not just gender, but also potentially other things like having some. I'm not sure exactly how many people we're planning on having in such a team, but maybe someone who is, for example, LGBTQ plus or whatever it may be. Yeah, I think also that we don't want to have too many background checks, because I think that might exclude a lot of people who seem uncomfortable with like that whole process, who might otherwise be great members of the team. Of course, if they have maybe like openly done bad things on RIPE mailing lists, or that's very publicly accessible and verifiable without like any further research, then yeah, that might be a problem. But beyond that, I don't think much should be done. Also, who should approve an application? As this is the RIPE community and not the RIPE NC, I feel like it's the chair team that should have the final approval. However, it might also make sense to solicit input from, I'm not sure where, some mailing list, or maybe also, I'm not sure, get help from some part of the RIPE NC to maybe look through if mailing lists or if they are aware of any previous issues. yeah, that does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ine. That was very helpful.
I have to lower the mic. That's not very common. This is Shane Kerr. So my understanding is, so within any one incident or report that's being handled, there's a subset of the whole set of people that's responding to it, right? So is the idea to have a really large group of people that you can pick from, or that you can guarantee there's enough people at any given event or scenario?
I've always got to lower the microphone. So Leo Vagoda again for the record. So the plan was that we don't want to overburden the people who are on this team. Dealing with a code of conduct report could be emotionally taxing, especially if it's a serious one. So and also we've got events all over the right region, which is a very diverse region. And we have not just these two meetings, but we've got mailing lists and other things, and the code of conduct covers all participation in RIPE. So the idea was to have a sufficiently large pool that there could always be two people available, plus one support person from the RIPE NCC. What the right size is, we don't know yet. Maybe it's 5, and then you've got sort of like 2 teams and a spare. I don't know. We'll learn and find out. We don't have to get it absolutely right straight away. We need to have enough that we can get started, and then we can do some learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Leo. That's there we go. Oh, here. Okay. That's informative. I guess I was expecting because if you're looking for a wide variety of types of people and you're limited and you're only expecting 5 people, and then you're going to have I think you're going to struggle to get the kind of diversity on the team that you're looking for. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I have no idea how important that's going to be. In principle, anyone is going to be able to be impartial and help. But I think in situations where people are under stress and they're feeling scared, then having, you're going to want someone that people can feel like they can relate to and trust. And I hate to say it, but I have no idea how you're going to unravel this. So, okay.
Very helpful. Thank you.
There are no further questions. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to re-echo what Shane said. Yes, I think it's very important just because of that to have lots of diversity, and also to make sure that, well, you have people of both gender or of maybe also other genders, but at least like some more diversity, so people feel like they have someone they can trust because they can relate to them in some way. Or that they might know more about like the specifics just because of, well, reasons. So yeah, I think it might be useful to make sure that you get a lot of diversity, and that might also have to kind of be a reason for why you decide on the size. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more question from Caroline.
Oh, perfect. Hi. Yeah, personality type, I think it's really important that you're a good listener. So when someone approaches you, that you're able to listen and kind of without bias check or have a full picture of what's going on. And I do relate as well that if you have a certain diversity, then people feel more comfortable. For instance, maybe female feel more comfortable to go to a female, or and that counts for everyone. So I think that's good. But with 5 people, you have to, it's a bit more complicated. But I think personality-wise, a good listener without bias.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. We have one other question from Anna Wilson.
Former stand-up comic. Hi, Anna Wilson, HENF. I could use an idea of the balance between if you get an application from someone to join, and whoever is making the decision decides they shouldn't be on the team, and you don't have a strong selection process around that, how much trouble is that? Because if it's not a lot of trouble, then we should probably be talking more about who will approve the applications. And if it is a lot of trouble, then it sounds like we need a detailed criteria. And I really hope we don't have to go down that road, but that's the question.
Yeah. You see, of course, if you get good applications, that's not a problem. If you get applications where you feel something is wrong or you have complaints about it, it's a little bit difficult to deny someone without having a good reason to do so. It's good for transparency, it's good for predictability, it's good to manage a little bit the expectations and to create some safety for the process, some trust around the process. An excessive list of criteria, I don't think it's possible, but perhaps some principles would make sense. It's not easy. I agree, and I agree with with you, Shen. Yes, this is not an easy task at all. So this is something that we're trying to figure out. We would like to see whether there are any preferences, any strong preferences, like people with this background is a no. And I think it's also, we need to do our own research and our own homework and see what other communities do or other bodies like that have as criteria.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we don't seem to have any further questions. Last call. We have Neil O'Reilly.
Neil O'Reilly, Right Vice Chair. I think it will be helpful, especially considering the remarks that Cynthia made, if we have a nomination process where people may of course self-nominate, but they should have a supporter, so that the position that the chair team will find itself in is less delicate.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice?
I just want to say that I think Neil's comments were good, and I agree with them.
Thank you. Another final call. Anybody? No? Okay. Thank you, Athena. Okay, so thank you all for participating. We're always open to your questions anyway. You'll find us on the right website and the email address too. So thank you for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here this late. And I'll close this meeting. Thank you.